Hi guys, and welcome back. And yeah, so what we're talking about today is just should have done that before. What we're talking about today is just a few things. I want to talk again, just re-emphasizing the fact that judge your pace of where you're currently at and not your either ideal fitness, your goal fitness, where you were before, because in actual fact, you can run you'll the the perfect pace when you were in your best shape could be detrimental when you're not in good shape. Okay, so I'm just going to chat about that. It's probably just going to be that, just rabbiting on. So if you got that bit, it's fine. Um, yeah, I was in Laurie's here as well. So again, I talked about that dew point, but I mightn't bring it up again. My wife is sick of me saying this, but I was away on holidays, and even though it was like 32, 33 degrees, because the humidity was low, in Ireland it was like 22 and 23, and actually the dew point was higher, so it was more uncomfortable to run in Ireland than it was when it's like 10 degrees warmer. So I had my calculators out all the time, and yeah, she was getting sick of it, to be fair. But
Here
yeah.
in Toronto, we always report our temperature with the humidex because it gets quite
Yeah.
humid. So it always has, such and such temperature, but feels like such and such
Yes.
temperature.
Yeah.
So we've had a heat wave. It's cut today, but it's been at 40 in the humidex for the last couple of weeks.
Yeah,
Off and
that's
on.
like, and that's so, because here, because it's only say 22, or it might be getting up to like 24, people are like, oh, it's not even, say it's 20 degrees, it's not even that warm. But it's like, yeah, but on the humidity, it's massively high. And then people are wondering why they're not running as well, or thinking like, oh, I thought I was in better shape than that. It's like, well, you gotta take in the conditions. Like you have to, like, you can't just ignore that. Like, and I feel sometimes we do that as runners. We're just very hard on ourselves, you know. I think sometimes we're not objective to the point where, if a run doesn't go great, it's like, I thought I was in good shape, but I'm obviously not. As opposed to, well, you were sick there 3 weeks ago, and you had to take a week off running, and you're only coming back into it. And I know you wanted to do this race, but you're kind of making it out that, like, well, you had the same build up like before, or you had that injury and you were out for 3 or 4 weeks and you weren't building up. So I don't know. I feel like I know people don't like to make excuses, but I feel a lot of times there are valid reasons as well that aren't just excuses.
Yeah, well, that's actually kind of related to a question I wanted to ask you about, if
Yeah,
it's okay
brilliant.
to. So as I said, we've had this heat wave. And so there were a few nights where I wasn't really sleeping particularly well because it's so damn
Yeah.
hot. Even like our AC's on, but you can't keep up with the temperatures. But I was like, do my plan, right? So
Yeah.
a couple of weeks ago, like 2 weeks ago, I guess, yesterday, I went out and I did my strides, which I always do too fast. It was a really hot
Yeah.
day. Hadn't slept well for days. And then 2 days later, I noticed my hip was really sore.
Yeah.
But I took 2 days off and then I ran again and it seemed okay. But then I ran the next day and it was excruciating. And then it was started to swell up.
Okay.
So I'm thinking, I don't think I did anything much differently than I've ever done in the past, except for the fact poor sleep and
Yeah.
running in a hot condition. And I'm wondering, could that have somehow messed my muscles up or
Yeah, definitely. I think the recovery capacity might have come down slightly. Usually,
yeah.
ironically, usually when it's hot, the faster stuff is fine. It's the longer stuff that kind of gets you. And is it still swollen now, Laurie?
Yeah, it was about five. I stopped running last Tuesday was my last run. I
Yeah.
noticed the swelling for the first time on Friday or so. It's
Okay.
come down since then. So it's not completely gone, but it's down.
Okay.
Um, and it was the long run, the second day in a row. Like I had a 60-minute run and then an 80-minute run. And it was the 80-minute run that it was the
Yeah.
last 20 minutes it was trying to, you talk about changing your gait. I was compensating because that's how much
Yeah.
it was bothering me. I should
Yeah.
have stopped today.
Yeah. I think something like that, when it's acute, I'd be looking at doing maybe like shorter, like warm up and all with like your hip opener stuff. I wouldn't even be doing like aggressive, like even world's greatest stretch or hip openers. Just like, the one we have with the weight and you have your leg out to the side,
Yep, yep.
leaning out to that one. I'd probably just do that. Maybe a little bit of like airplane just to open up. Like, so you're doing a single leg deadlift, and open the hip. And then I'd probably do like actually like 3 by 5 of like a heavy rack pull deadlift, or just something like a squat, but like a little bit heavier, really to
Yeah.
engage the glutes, but don't do a crazy amount of volume on it. And then I'd keep the running only like 40 minutes just to let that calm down. I know it can be frustrating,
Yes.
but I feel like, especially when they're swelling, I think I would just be a little bit more conservative, get that activation, get everything like switched on again. I think that
Yeah.
would calm it down, and then just keep the running like, at 40 minutes till it calms down for just a week, and then it should be fine.
Okay. Yeah, like I say, I took the last week off, and then this week
Yeah.
I thought I would just do bike rides, just to be
Yeah.
conservative
That'd be ideal. Do bike rides, but then also do that, as I
in
said,
the strength.
yeah, a bit of strength, and not like a long session. You could do some upper body, and then just maybe like one set of like a deadlift or a goblet squat, just something, and even not going down super heavy or like super deep, but just kind of like trying to activate everything there again and see, does that kind of take the pressure off. But definitely, when you're not sleeping correctly, the heat there, your body's recovery capacity is probably down a little bit, and that's probably what happened.
Okay. And then quick question in terms of like, what seems to be problem is glute med and TFL on
Yeah,
that side. And so would you recommend doing any specific activating exercises before running for that
yeah,
to
I'll
kind
show
of
you which
switch
one.
them on? Yeah.
You don't, I can't multitask, so I don't know if you can chat about something when I'm here for a second, but uh,
Yeah, I mean, I saw a physio yesterday, and he thinks it's glute med and TFL. So he's told me to do clams every day and
I wouldn't do
train
clams,
into.
right? If it's
No?
in injury rehabs, right? If you go to knee pain
Yeah.
and then you go down to, I need to probably redo this video, but if you go to ITB TFL,
Yeah.
like, so the TFL glute med is an issue. Sometimes what I find, right, is if he's thinking the TFL, if you start doing clams, the TFL can be super active, and then the glute med's not kicking in as much. Shut up, on. You can't hear me when it's on there, or could you hear that?
I
You
could hear
could.
the shut up, Owen, but I can't hear what's on the video.
That was me talking to myself like a lunatic. Okay, so obviously you're just doing your releases. I do like the glute med release, and then roll forward slightly onto, if you look at where the TFL is. Now, this is the exercise I would do beforehand.
Okay.
Let me see where it is. Okay, look at this for a video. Okay, absolutely brilliant. You're not seeing that. So what you're going to do is you're going to have your hand on your glute med and your thumb is on the TFL. So I got one hand on the glute med, and the
Okay.
TFL muscle is just slightly to the front. Do you know what I mean? It's, if
Okay.
you see on the anatomy, it's I'll just do it.
I think it's where I'm swollen.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, exactly, right. So say if we look here, we got our TFL just to the front here, and then the glute med is kind of here. So it's to the front of the, say if here's the hip, it's just that front one here. Okay, so what we want to do is we're going to roll, toes are up like that, and we're going to twist the foot outwards, and we're actively like squeezing our glutes and pushing in on the glute medius. So I want to push in on that muscle, and you'll find that you're going to be a long way out first till you start feeling a flicker of the. Then you can do. I wouldn't like that other one is keeping the hike a little bit, but I wouldn't even bother with that one beforehand. I would do. You're lying on your back, legs are out, and we're rolling the leg out, squeezing the glutes, digging our fingers into the glute medius, and then the thumb is there, so that what you should find is, like, I can do it now where I can just roll here and that muscle is switch on because I'm used to doing it, but this muscle stays relaxed. Sometimes what I find is if you're doing a lot of clams, the TFL is also getting a lot of activation. So if I was doing something like he's saying there, I'm turning my foot out and I can feel that muscle say it's soft, soft, soft. But once I get out a little bit and I'm kind of consciously, if you're digging into it like that, pushing in, it'll start to switch on. And then what that will do is you're getting like active, you're getting that nice rotation through the hip, and you're getting like the glute med firing without the without compensatory motions of the TFL. And then you can go back to the glute clams and stuff like that. So that's what I would do. It's only a 5-minute video. I must write myself down to do that again. So it's that rotation and belly buttons in, and you're digging your hand in, digging your fingers into the glute med just to get it going.
Okay. And what about side lying leg abductions?
You could do that
Banded?
one. Yeah, you could do the banded ones, with the leg straight and slightly behind.
Yeah. Okay.
That would do well as well. But try that first one. And then see. Okay. Okay.
Thanks.
Brilliant. All right. I'm gonna ask you, Laurie, to explain something again, because it's always good where I can not multitask. Okay, so next thing I wanted to chat about was I had someone, they didn't use their lactics. They took a year off running, and what they're trying to do is they did a 10K and they didn't run as well as they thought they should. But what they're finding is they're trying to hit the paces that they hit when they were fit, and they're not hitting those paces. And they're like, well, like, I'm back a good bit now. And it just hit me. It's like, look, I did a session this morning where I haven't prepped this. Sometimes I prep this and it's a lot clearer because I've had a chance. This, I know even by starting this is going to go squirrel brain. Like, what's he talking about? So record this, transcribe this in AI and go, what does he mean if you're not actually a maniac? If this wasn't the ramblings of a lunatic, what's the idea behind this? All right, so I did a session 5 by a mile. When I was like in sub 30-minute 10K shape, we would do that and say sub 30 minutes is like 450, 452 per mile. So like say 3-minute per K pace. And we do 5 of them. Today there was another guy who's doing it, so it's kind of helping him out with a session. But he was doing them in 5 minutes and he was doing 6 of them because he's getting ready for a 10 mile. I did 5 of those, and then what I said to myself was, yeah, like I was like, will I do 6? Will I do 5? Well, I was like, really, if I was honest with myself, if I ran 31 minutes at the moment for 10K or 31:10, I'd be really happy with that. So I'm like, I'm actually running my 10K pace. So this is the same workout that I would have done back when I was very fit, at the appropriate pace, at like what I would run a 10K now. Because what I feel that woman was doing is, even though you can say, well, I wasn't hitting those paces, but even the intention of me of trying to hit, say, 450 today, or if I did 6 of them, I have ran like, say, sub 50 for 10 miles, which is kind of 5-minute miling. But again, if I was running a 10 miles in 10 days like that guy is, I'd be delighted with like 51 or something. So even though 6 by a mile is kind of your real prime session that you're ready to roll. So yeah, sometimes you gotta think, where am I now? And then reduce the paces to that, because what that allows is a few things. One, now when I'm doing the miles, it's a really good 10K session, but I can get into 10K effort. If I'm, say, and it doesn't sound like much, because we're trying to run at, say, 5-minute mile, which is 10K, it's like, say, a 30-minute effort for only like, say, 5 minutes, and then this was like a 1:45 break. So there's a decent break. I'll come back to that as well in a second. Usually I do a shorter break than that, but what allows me to do is get into the rhythm of what a 10K feels like. I'm going to write down a couple of things because some things are coming to my head for a second. Track is 1, and bigger breaks. It allows you to get into the 10K vibe. You like your rhythm, because it's, say, 75 seconds per 400. If you run a 74, or you can hit 75, and you're comfortable that, well, look, if I go a second too slow, because I'm comfortable enough, I'll be able to pick it up. if I was just in my head of like, no, I gotta hit 4:52, so I gotta hit 3-minute Ks. All of a sudden now, I actually might go out, which is 72s for the 400s. I might go out in a 70 because I'm running scared. Like I'm running like, oh, fuck, I don't think I'll hit a 72. So you're really like getting out hard and nearly trying to bang time. And then you're like through in 70 and like you do the first one and you actually, instead of 4:52, you run 4:50. And then the next one, it's like, say you're really chasing and then you run 4:55 because you're getting tired. And you continue to try hit 4:52. And I don't know, I'm actually only like guessing with this lady. It's like that. She's like, well, say then, because I ran the first one fast, the second one say 4:55, the third one is like 4:56. By the fourth one, I might be back to 5:01, run like trying to run hard. But now I'm very sloppy because I'm like, I'm not into a rhythm. I'm like, I'm kind of grinding this out now. And it's like a race because I've gone too fast at the start. I've actually not had one rep that's replicating like the 10K kind of feel or pace that I should be in now. So even though by the end, say if it goes, and I've done sessions like this, when you start blowing up, they might cut it at 4, or say they do 5 and the last one is 5:05. The average might be 5 minutes for that session, 5-minute miles for that session, or the 3:07s. But because I did the first one maybe in like 2:58 Ks, then the second one was in like 3:02 K, or even like 3 minutes, like on the button. But then I started going out to 3:04, then 3:10, and like held something at 3:10, 3:12. So it all averages out at 3:07 or 5-minute Ks. There's not one rep there that was actually comfortable. Every rep was pushed. So the pace is off because she said I'm not able to hit the paces, but I know the way she was saying it. She was like, I'm trying to hit these paces. And I'm trying to say to that person is like, that level of fitness that you were at was perfect when you were at that level of fitness because you could relax into it. It was like practicing 10K pace. But if you know you're not going to run a 10K at that pace, you got to be like accepting of where you're at, because you're actually not getting the stimulus at all. Like today I got much more and feel like I'm still tired because it was a hard session, but I got much more out of that because I got like 5 reps at a pace that's like, if this was, first couple, it's like they were still hard because it's a faster pace than I'm used to, but I was able to like kind of relax into them and then dig in a little bit at the end. If you go chasing something, one, your paces can be all off because it's too difficult to really get relaxed and comfortable at, and you're not getting any reps where you're replicating a session. You're really replicating a 5K type effort, or a kind of panicked 5K effort at the start, and tailing off and trying to like drag on at the end. So you really, I know I say it a bit, but you have to accept where you are, and trying to think, I want to get back to the fitness that I was at before, which is a perfectly like logical thing to do. It's like, well, look, when I was at my fitness, this is what I could do. So I'm going to try to do that. And I accept I'm not going to hit those paces, but let's try for the first few. And in the middle of the workout, if I'm slower, it's okay. That's not good, because like my friend used to say that, where people say if they were trying to hit a certain time. So say you're trying to break 20, say, let's say 40 minutes for 10K. They're like, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go out for the first 5K, I'm going to go out in 1940 pace or 1950 pace. And I'll be dying a bit at the end. But because I have a bit of time in the bank, I'll be able to like hopefully hold on. And he was saying he was pacing a guy. So it was 8 minutes for a 3K he was trying to do. And he's like, dude, you're trying to control death. You're trying to say like, I'm going to die and I'll judge how much I'm going to die. It's like, that doesn't work. When you're dying, you're dying. And it's like, so you're better off like, let's go through at the pace and feel like if you could pick it up, or you're in more control. And that's what can happen when we have when we have these like times that we used to be doing, especially because the muscle memory is there as well. So when I started getting comfortable at the 5 minutes, it's like, oh, I could start rocking here now. But actually, the second thing to do is not to do that, because I'll be overly tired tonight. Like, I definitely by halfway through, I'm like, you know what? If I want to know, I know what 450s feels like. I could have slotted straight into it. I was warmed up. I was like, I would have been racing. But again, when I did the 5 by a mile at 450s, I was in control. Like the last two felt hard, but it wasn't like I'm going to start absolutely rocking these down. Like, stay, especially when you're coming back, especially if you're not in that fitness, it's like just getting the distance covered is more than enough. Like me getting 5 by a mile at a good 10K effort is more than enough. That'll bring me on. There's a tendency to overreach. Where you Okay, so I'm gonna like stop there, Laurie, and you're gonna come in for 2 seconds just to see like what you getting from that, and then I'll go on again because I am rabbiting.
Okay. No, I mean the whole idea of training where you're at as opposed to where you want to be. So you end up building up more gradually rather
Yeah.
than blowing yourself up right out of the gate. And I have a tendency to do that myself because what
Yes.
happens is I'm not good at judging my pace. So I do my first rep, and if it's faster than it was meant to be, I kind of feel like they should all be at least that fast because that was what I started with. And then I find by
Yeah.
the end of it, I've killed myself. And that's how I injure myself every single time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
consequently, too, when it comes to doing races, I don't really know what my race pace feels like because I've either done easy or I've gone too fast.
Can people listen to that bit again? What Laurie's just said. That is so important. It's You actually haven't practiced race pace at all. So people who go out too fast, even if they're hitting the pace, they're not getting the feel of it. They're not getting the feel of, okay, I'm here. They're getting the feel of, I'm actually absolutely shagged and I'm going to go out really hard and hold on. So they're getting sloppy. So they never practice that like start of the race, mid race, where you're running fast but trying to be relaxed. And that's a bit that's often forgot. Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying, Laurie, that we can have these. And as you said, I actually didn't even add that second point, which you made, which is really important, is also, guys, know if it is a session that's, like, say, even for me today, the 5 by a mile, if it is a session that is unfamiliar to you or is harder than you're normally used to, so say you're used to doing your AT or LT, and now you're like, oh, shit, I have to hit a time. Don't like think of, and I'm good at this. Think of if we went through the first one and say a couple of seconds, maybe 2-3 seconds too quick. Think of that as time in the bank. I know I talked about time in the bank where, like, even for example, in that session, there was another guy who's very mature as a runner. He went 2 seconds too fast for the first lap, but then so we did 73 seconds. Then he just ran 75, 75, 75. And in my head, I'm like, okay, we got at least 3 of the 4 laps at the correct pace. Like, I'm not going to slow down for it. And now next time we're going to try hit the 75s. Like, whereas as you said, sometimes people can have like, okay, well now the next one has to be this fast again. Where I'd nearly be like, okay, we can be a little bit more conservative going out, because if we hit a 5:01, we're still 5 minutes dead for the first 2 reps. And then to be fair, towards the end, it's fine. If you want to go like on your last rep, you're like, you know what, not to go faster, but let me not slow down. That's when to do it. But I actually nearly like balancing the earlier reps out, because that's more about getting relaxed than opposed to, as you're saying there, Laurie, people are like kind of pushing, and then at the end it's an absolute bloodbath.
Here's a quick question because the one that I hurt myself on, they were just 30-second intervals.
Yeah.
But I did do them 25 to 40 seconds per K faster than I was supposed to, like
Yeah,
than the
you you
fast
you
end of
you
my
go off like
range.
a scalded cat all the time, like.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You
That's a good
always
point.
do that. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
We've
just
always
because I
talked
figured
about
I'm
your
not supposed to.
yeah, your thing. I don't know what it is. You love hammering. You're a sprinter in another life,
Yeah,
I'm sure.
yeah. So, but I thought to myself, like I know if I have a longer thing to do, I tend not to do that because I know I have to hold on for longer. But when I think I only have to hold on for 30 seconds, I figure, well, why not go for it, right? But I
Yeah,
always think, is 30 seconds enough to hurt myself? It seems to be.
yeah, definitely for running. And
Yeah.
like obviously, you know, I think you're super intelligent. And I ask you all the nutrition stuff, but it like I have a friend as well. Again, he's a chartered accountant. I always ask this guy for advice on running. Always gets, but for himself, it's like you need to always think if it's a shorter rep, I need to chill out. I need to feel like you should honestly always be feeling like you should. For you, Laura, you need to picture someone who's slower than you and go, I have to stay behind them. In your imaginary person, it's like, oh my God, if they weren't here, I could like whip this. Because you do like my friend did that as well, as I said. He only gets this guy can do 115 mile weeks, like he's a marathon runner, and he only gets injured doing sprinting work, like 200s, 30 seconds. Like we did this workout. I always remember it where there's a guy, he came sixth in the NCAAs. This is the year beforehand. So me and him were doing a workout with this other guy. And so it was 600 to 5K pace, and then 400 to 3K pace. And our friend isn't as fast as us. And I was like, dude, now you've done 600s quicker than you normally do, and you've done 400s a lot quicker than you normally do. Like our 3K pace would he be his 1500 meter pace, you know? So he's you're maxing. We're doing 1500 meter pace now. You got to chill out. Yeah, dead right. He listened to that advice for, I would say, the 3 seconds before we started a rep. And I was leading it. And I thought it was the NCA guy who's coming up on my shoulder. So I move out for him. It's like, oh, let him pass me because I'm happy at this pace. And it was there he was, Bren, just going as hard as he could. And like 2 days later, he's like, oh, my hamstring's really sore. I was like, dude, you ran a 300 as fast as you could. Like, so yeah, you always need to imagine there's someone slower and just do all your 30-second stuff a little bit more controlled.
Okay. Because I mean, my paces aren't anywhere near yours, obviously.
No, but it's relative. It's relative. Like it is relative because you're still running, and as I said, it's like I don't know if you've seen Braveheart when they run into battle, but that's what I imagine. It's just a long sword.
I don't remember that.
Laurie's like family are from the Highlands or something because they're controlling the running, and then it's like, yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, they were definitely like, you're from descendants who went charging into battle, definitely like carrying a big bike. You're like, go. Let's leave it all out. So yeah, I think that's and like as I said, even like physiologically, where we can see, just for example, I know I've kind of showed this before, but imagine if we're doing a session and we wanted to be like aerobic. So this is like someone's LT. If we find that like if you're running, like say if we're doing an LT session, just for example, and we know like the heart rate and the lactic has to be here, going faster because we used to be at this pace doesn't help us. You're training a different system. And it's the same. If we're trying to train like say a 10K type system, which is here, going way faster for the longer reps, you're not even working the neuromuscularly or aerobically, like the actual area that you're going to do. Okay, so just remember, like with these profiles, like going faster, you can actually it can be detrimental, not even from an injury or illness, which you are increasing your chance of because you're really pushing your red line, but you mightn't be training the appropriate zone. So that's why I feel that girl is running worse. And like, I think she's going to get, I know I harp on about lactics, but she's going to get a lactic. And what I would be saying to her is, because she had a year off, she really shouldn't be doing stuff off pace. She should be using her lactic thresholds to build these areas, and then we're going to sprinkle that on top of it. Okay, so because she needs to get used to just doing heart rate and effort based on where she is to build that nice aerobic base. Now, what I will say is, when you have your aerobic base, I do find that some people, and I've talked about this on other podcasts, this neuromuscular athlete versus the aerobic athlete, especially when you see people who get into like back-to-back marathons. I had a couple. Now, again, the dew point, that humidity, what was called humidity index? Humidex.
Humidex.
The Humidex is high, the dew point is high. So I think that was affecting the races that they had. And then we had one guy who ran really well as a PB, and it's like, dude, read the room. Everyone else, like, not happy today, not happy today. It's like, ran a 2-minute PB. Everyone's like, yay, giving it all one thumbs up. But what they are, it's like they feel flat at 10K pace. You know, they're used to it and they're like, felt like I couldn't get going. If that's the case, that you're doing a lot of the aerobic stuff, and I said people getting ready on half marathons, taking a tiny bit of a break and just building back into a marathon. So this is like your 2 marathons a year and doing like 10Ks as like a prep race. For those people, I honestly feel like doing like your track kind of workout, so like a 5 by a mile session when you have your base is really good. Or ones that I love would be like 10 minutes at 80, so like zone 3, then 12 by 400 meters, and or 12 by like say 80 seconds. If you can get to a track, even this is like the kind of lactic heart rate kind of thing I'm talking about again. If you can get to a track, it's so much better. You'll calculate your pace off what you think you'll run a 10K, not your best 10K, just like I said. So I'm like, you know what, 75s, 74s, 30-second break, 40-second break, doesn't have to be big. And like just bang out 12 of them. That's enough of a turnover that when you go run that in a race, it's not going to feel super fast. And then you could do maybe 10 minutes of 80 again. So you're still getting, say, 6 miles of like work, which you might have done as a zone 3 session for the zone 3 session for the marathon. You're still getting that. The heart rate is going to be hitting zone 3 because you're getting those breaks in the middle. But you're also getting that turnover. And what I like, if you can get to a track, I would do that, because people tend to go too fast. Like you can't trust the Garmin pace off that. And they have a tendency of going too fast. They overestimate that pace. Where if you get on a track, you're like, Jesus Christ, that's actually like I'm going through way too fast. And that's what I was saying to Laurie, where say, especially on 400, you go too fast the first one, readjust. As Laurie says, you need to actually, we're not trying to do a session where let's go as fast as we can. We're actually just doing a session to get the rhythm of this feels fine, you know, so 10K pace, maybe slightly faster than 10K pace. Yeah, so I had that with 1 or 2 people who were like, I can't get going. If that's happening, then I'm like, yeah, I think you need a couple of weeks of what I would do is like 10 minutes, 12 by 400 meters with like say 30-second break, 10 minutes. And then the next week, then an aerobic session, then it would be next week be 10 minutes, 8 by 600 meters. So same distance, but the 600 meters and maybe like a minute off, or even 45 seconds off probably there. And then 10 minutes at the end. And then last one might be like, not even leave out the 10 minutes. That'd be if someone's doing a marathon. Usually it's 10 minutes these, 10 minutes that. And then maybe one last week will be like 10 minutes, 6 by 800 meters, and off 1 minute. Just getting that rhythm. You're out there for a bit longer. You'll go into races going, geez, I'm flying. And then if you were actually prepping for a 10K, the last, like say 10-day out session, like your actual tester session would be 5 by a mile. So you're 1 mile less, but you're going for a longer time with maybe like 90 seconds recovery, and you're hitting like target 10K pace, you know, and that'd be the first, like off what you're thinking, if I hit this, I'm happy. So try get to a track. I've done it. Like we're lucky we have a track close by. If you can mark it out, you'll just, anytime you do, minutes on is fine because you can just get a feel. But if you're coming up to something, or if you're like feeling like I'm flat, especially after a race, if someone's feeling like they're flat after a race, they're going to have this like frustration in them. The big tendency I see they'll do is they'll be pushing those minutes hard. They're like, yeah, I needed to get that speed, and I didn't even feel that fast because we do them um around a park. And I just know when we're on the park, it's like I've done it so many times where we might do some in the park and then run to the track, and it's like, Jesus, these on the track are so much easier. It's because it's, I don't know what it is. It's like the track's easier, but you have your exact distance, and you're like, God, this isn't as hard as, you just have a tendency to push. You're like, well, it's coming up slower on the watch, and yeah, it's coming up slower on the watch, and it's like it's not, I'm not hitting it here. So um that was last thing. Okay, so a couple of other things then. This is flown. I'll leave it now actually. So last ones then are, I swear to God, I was trying to read that and I have no, it looks like bigger balls, but I know what it is. Bigger brakes. That could have been anything. That looks like a Z. I should probably show people that. Like, I don't know if you can see this. And I was just drawing it. I know, look, it looks like BOLZ, 100%. But anyway, I know what it is. If you're doing something, so say you're doing the miles, and it is, say for those people who are listening to this who are like, I was feeling flat and I'm like, do this mile session, or not even the miles, I'm going to the track. If you're doing the mile session, remember what the main goal of this is. The main goal is rhythm at the pace. And because especially on, I like long reps at the pace, because even if you go out too hard for 200, you're not going to sustain it. You're going to just naturally calm back in. So I like the 400 meters at the start just as an easier one to break in. But if I'm getting ready for a race, I like going for like these mile reps, but make the recovery longer. If you feel like I'm overreaching and I'm starting to like waver too much, don't be afraid to take a longer recovery to keep the quality of the rep up. Now, I am terrible for this. On this would go for zone 3 work and zone 4 work. And that guy, that accountant I was saying, he's the one who said that. I was like, you are so right. And yet you never do the right thing for yourself. But he was saying it. I was like, oh, well, we just get going for, we were doing, I think we were doing 4 by 7 minutes at zone 3. And like, you know, you'd be in a bit of a rush. It's a long session. You're like, geez, did 75 seconds. I was like, well, we get going. And he's like, no, he's like, 7 minutes is a long rep. Even though it's zone 3, it's a long rep. He's like, let's take at least 90 because your pace at the end was starting to come off slightly. So um, rather than going slower on this last rep, let's take a longer recovery and we can keep the same pace going because, you know, you're going to start more recovered. You know, now look, sometimes if you're under pressure, it does, on the heart rate, it's not that big a deal to go slower and you get that cardiac drift that we talked about. That's fine. But it's actually a good thing. I was like, yeah, you're right. Like, let's take a little bit more recovery now, and actually we'll be able to keep the quality the same. And that's especially true if you're doing like longer mile reps. Like the mile rep is long enough that, you know, it's like it's not like a 400 where you're taking a mad break and you're not getting the same kind of stimulus. You're still a mile into it, but you don't want to have it where you're doing these longer reps at race pace, and because you're really shortening the recovery, you're feeling wrecked. Like, what you want to feel in those miles is, I'm kind of like, this should be like the start to the middle part of the race, as opposed to the end bit when you're gritting. It should be the, like, can I get comfortable at running at this pace and not panic? You know, it's that kind of feel, and taking a longer recovery. And I have friends like, obviously, Peter Lynch, who has national record holder for the marathon. Shane McAvoy, these guys ran like 13:40s, and when they're in Tulsa, and well, he's gone to North Carolina now, but they would always take longer doing, and when I was with the Australian team, they're the same, longer reps. So doing your mile reps, but take longer recovery if you need it. Because in that way you're getting used to running at a pace for much longer and then having the recovery. Like, in middle of the rep, you're going to feel like, Jesus Christ, like 400, 600 in, you're going to be like, this is tough. But you can stay kind of relaxed. Like, if I need, I can take, like, say today, for example, we were taking up to 2 minutes. So that's why I was thinking of when I was saying it. It used to be 75, which is fine. But the guy was like, I need a bit longer. The speed for him is a little bit harder, the guy I was with. So he's like, take longer, but make sure you're actually hitting the pace versus let's go in a minute and we're a couple of seconds slower, but who cares? Or having to really, really force it. Like it's more like take a longer recovery, as I said, especially when it's a mile or it's a little bit longer, and get the quality of the rep, get like into the feel of it. So that was the last one. And then the very last thing, that makes sense, that one, Laurie? I think it.
Yeah, I mean, the way you describe it too, it sounds like it's kind of neuromuscular training as well. Like just your body gets used to being comfortable at a particular pace. So if you compromise that, then you don't get the benefit of that.
Yeah,
If if you decide later to go faster, you don't recover well, and then your next few are not at that pace, well, you've lost the benefit of learning to be
exactly.
comfortable at that pace.
You're not exactly, and we're not expecting people to be like, cause the pace, like a 10K pace or a 5K pace, it's difficult, especially when you're doing a K or a mile. But yeah, as you said, you're losing the benefit. It's not grit your teeth. It's not like we need to practice the last bit kind of takes care of itself sometimes, and you can do hills or you can do repeated reps, or even you'll find even with a longer recovery, I wouldn't rip the absolute pace. Like I wouldn't be taking 4 or 5 minutes before my last rep just to hit it faster. But it's like just taking what I need to really feel like I'm able to hit this pace comfortably. Because then, as you said, it's getting used to running fast but being relaxed is the thing where we're actually practicing. So all those people who I'm feeling flat, it's like you need to run fast and feel relaxed. Because when you say you're feeling flat, it's not at the end when you're like coming home. It's like when you start, you feel like I am sprinting here. Yeah, so don't be afraid to take the Africans when we went to Africa. They were so good at that. They were like the Europeans. You're always mental on your. We'd be like, look, we're meant to go at 75. It's they're like, chill out, will you? Like they were really like they kind of like take a bit later, but then they'd be very hitting the pace on their reps. Like it's like we can relax and then for over there 2 minutes or 90 as long, and that's what we were doing today. We jogged down, you jog back, like we were going at a minute 40, but it's like we have at least 2 minutes if we wanted, do you know? So but it's like let's just go if we're feeling good and judge it from there, and not feeling under pressure like okay we have to go now. It's like, well, if we need to take a little bit more to make sure that when we hit it we're going to do it, we're going to do that. Last one is get the chest strap. I know Monica, who's on this, her wrist strap correlates, so she only uses a wrist strap. But I have a new watch. This thing is just like it's asking me like it's like a counselor on honest to God. It's like literally a counselor. I'm like, can I go for a run? How you feeling? You ready? Like we'll search for these sensors now, and then afterwards it's like, how do you feel? What was that out of 10? It's like, dude, just stop and go off. Like, but anyway,
What watch is that?
it's a four runner like
Oh yeah.
165 or 265. I don't know if
I've
you
got
have
a
it. Like,
255. I have a Forerunner 255.
yeah, so you have to like I have to go into about three different settings before it even just starts. And then at the end, it's like, what was that out of 10? How do you
Yeah, I
feel
get that.
after that run? Oh God, I'm
Yeah,
sick
I
of it.
get that. Yeah.
Um, so but basically, right, I because it has that green thing, let me just get it for a second. Has that green. Yeah, so it has that thing at the back that like goes into your skin. That's fine, but as you get when you go faster, it's not adhesive. Like so when I'm slow, that's getting good contact. But as I'm moving faster, the contact isn't as good. So when I'm saying I'm doing these reps that are faster, and my heart rate's down like it's zone two. Do
Yeah.
you know when I'm like, if you have this, it's actually feeling the like the beat, or you can use that one, the chorus one, naturally just flexing like because, but yeah, just push it up, because it's got like it's got the I know that's that's so subconscious like does not one. Um, I'll have to edit that. That'll make this bigger. Basically, that's got it's got a good strong pulse, so it's feeling that through. It's not doing the light. The light is fine when it's slower. It's very accurate. But I was doing a session when I was on holidays. I didn't bring my heart rate monitor, and like the as I was going faster, it was like correlated, and then after a while, it's like it went it was like saying my heart rate was lower, even though it was going faster, because I was starting to sweat down here. Because it's not like staying on the same spot, because it's kind of just moving up and down very slightly. So look, I'm always saying like invest in
I always
yourself.
use a chest strap, always.
Chest strap,
I
yeah,
never, I never
exactly.
follow it's always connected to a heart rate monitor. Yeah, chest strap.
Yeah, I'm kind of a bit mad as well. I don't even like these laser. I'm like actually thinking of, I don't like all that laser thing going into me, but anyway. Um, so yeah, chest strap 100%. If you're doing any type of workout, they're about 50 euros, $50. Like, get a chest strap. Don't trust the wrist strap, and don't go into getting a lactic test without a heart rate strap, because it's just not going to be reliable. Okay, and I know Monica is a scientist by nature, so she's actually looked at the correlations. But unless you can do correlations of, does this give me the same and am I happy, get a heart rate strap or get one of those Chorus straps. Brilliant. Great to be back. That was a great one. That absolutely flew. And now better go down and got to discuss a few little things. Well, I'll tell you next week. It's not, not really, I'll tell Laurie. Okay, thanks guys. Bye bye.
Take care.